1998, the family dinner table. The air reeks of roast chicken and desperate bids for attention. Your older brother is bragging about a varsity win, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Your younger sister knocks over her juice. Instantly, total panic. Your mother rushes in like it's a 5-alarm fire. And then, there's you. You're physically there, you're chewing your food, but you are entirely off the frequency. Look, in clinical psychology, there's a cold term for this: the saturated environment. The territory was fully occupied by the time you took your first breath. The golden child leader role? Taken. The fragile pet role? Taken. You were the unassigned variable, the glitch in the family matrix. Society slaps a lazy label on this. They call it middle child syndrome. They treat it like a defect, a quiet, pathetic little tragedy. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Being invisible wasn't neglect. It was a black ops training facility. Growing up in the background is like being locked in a soundproof glass room while everyone else has megaphones. You were forced to master micro-expressions, hidden motives, and tactical silence just to navigate the chaos. You didn't just survive the shadows, you weaponized them. While they were bleeding themselves dry for a drop of validation, you were quietly mapping the exits. You built a hyper-adaptive negotiator brain out of pure, cold necessity. Your siblings? They freeze if the audience stops clapping. You can dissect a room's power dynamic in 3 seconds flat. We aren't here to do nostalgia. We aren't doing therapy. We are going to violently dismantle the myth of your invisibility and rip the lid off the psychological leverage you've been hoarding since you were 6 years old. Listen closely. Pay obsessive attention to the second psychological shift I'm about to reveal. Why? Because it is the exact mechanical reason you can instantly read people who arrogantly believe they are hiding. Every single time. By the time you took your first breath, the emotional real estate in your house was completely sold out. Clinical psychologists call this a saturated environment. I call it playing a rigged game. Look at the territory map. Your older sibling, the prototype, the golden child, every time they sneezed, it was front-page news. They swallowed the responsible leader role whole and left 0 crumbs. And the youngest? The pet, a fragile little glass ornament. They demanded 24/7 protection just by breathing. They never had to read a map because someone was always blindly carrying them. And then there's you, the unassigned variable. There was no script left for you, no spotlight. So, you became the ghost strategist. While the house was deafened by the firstborn's screaming ego and the lastborn's crying chaos, you were shoved into the background. You didn't just adapt, you mutated. You built an observational identity out of pure survival instinct. Being the middle child is like being the only sober person in a room full of drunk people fighting over a microphone. Here is the brutal truth about the saturated environment. You figured out early that loudness is a losing bet. The oldest is always louder. The youngest is always weaker. So what did you do? You crafted a psychological invisibility cloak. You navigated the dead zones of your parents' attention. You lived exclusively in the peripheral vision of your own family. This is exactly where your terrifying advantage was born. Not in being seen, but in watching the strings being pulled while everyone else was distracted. This forced isolation, it didn't break you, it weaponized you into a state of tactical independence. Think about it. Your siblings are chained to your parents, chained by the crushing weight of expectation, or chained by pathetic dependency. You were set free by their neglect. You had to build your own universe from scratch because the one you were handed had a massive no vacancy sign on the front door. But let's get one thing straight right now. This wasn't just loneliness. It was a masterclass in elite-level human decryption. Because you were denied the stage, you got the director's chair. You watched the lies, the manipulation, and the naked human drama unfold from the shadows. You weren't the ghost in the hallway because you were defective. You were the ghost because you were the only person in that entire house who understood how the walls were actually built. While your siblings were bleeding themselves dry playing the main characters, you were shoved into the director's chair. Look, Alfred Adler, the godfather of individual psychology, proved that birth order isn't just a timeline, it's a zero-sum turf war. The power seats in your house, Gone. You couldn't be the brute force leader. You couldn't be the fragile victim. So what did you do? You mutated. You developed hyper-adaptive intelligence. You didn't just compromise, you became the human shock absorber. Caught in the psychological crossfire between the crushing pressure from above and the relentless whining from below, you learned to read the exact emotional temperature of a room before your hand even touched the doorknob. Let's be brutally honest. Remember those evenings in the hallway? You memorized the acoustic signature of every single footstep on those floorboards. Heavy and fast, Dad is pissed. Light and dragging, Mom is exhausted. Therapists love to label this childhood anxiety. Well, not always, but almost always, they are dead wrong. Welcome to the diplomat's shadow. While the golden child and the baby were busy growing loud, obnoxious, big personalities, you were growing radar. You became a social chameleon, not because you were weak, not because you lacked a spine, but because blending into the wallpaper was the only way to survive the crossfire. You were the emotional bomb squad. Firstborn clashes with authority, you defuse it. Youngest starts screaming, you contained the blast radius. And here is where everyone gets it wrong. They look at you today and call you chill, easygoing. They have absolutely no idea that your deadpan calmness is actually a highly calibrated negotiator brain, running 1,000 threat assessment simulations every single second. This kind of perception isn't a gift, it's a scar, but it gives you the terrifying ability to see the invisible, unspoken contracts in every single room you walk into. This is exactly why you can spot a lying coworker or a manipulative partner 3 sentences into a conversation. You smell the trap before it snaps. You didn't just grow up, you were forged in the silent, suffocating gaps of a crowded house. And as I'm about to show you, this exact mechanism, your ability to navigate blindly without a map, is the precise reason you will absolutely crush your siblings in the real world. Watch this. You spent your entire childhood sitting in the waiting room, waiting for your turn, a turn that never ever came. You watched the golden firstborn get a ticker tape parade just for waking up. You watched the fragile baby sister get swaddled in bubble wrap the second she whimpered. Society tries to hand you a pathetic little victim card. They stamp middle child syndrome on your forehead and expect you to quietly fade away. They're looking at the cheap paint. We are looking at the structural steel. You are not the forgotten one. You are the load-bearing wall of that entire family dynamic, the only bridge keeping those 2 loud, unstable extremes from collapsing in on each other. You don't crave the spotlight today because you figured out early that the spotlight is just a target on your back. Welcome to tactical independence. Look at your siblings now. Really look at them. They are still suffocating, desperately chained to the exact same validations and expectations from 20 years ago. But you are completely untethered. You learn to navigate a psychological minefield blindfolded. You extract pure, weaponized mental peace from the exact same isolation that used to feel like abandonment. The world is deafening right now. Everyone else is just blindly panicking, reacting to the noise. But not you. You read the matrix. You hear the hostile footsteps 3 floors down before the handle even turns. Your childhood didn't break you. It forged you into the most lethal variable in any room, the ghost who holds everyone else's dirty secrets while giving absolutely nothing away. If you are the one who mapped the exits before anyone else even sat down, hit subscribe. You aren't invisible here. Stay in the shadows. Stay sharp. This is Silent Mind.